Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Horror Inside podcast. Dylan and Brandy are here again, as always, talking about everything horror related. And this time we happen to be talking about the brand new Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie based on the amazing books by Alvin Schwartz.
Yes, I
that
think
we both
it's
love.
yes, I think it's safe. This is a not a terribly common thing with our channel. We've only done podcast reviews on a handful of new movies. We did It, we did Pet Sematary, and now this, but
Yeah.
it has to be something that we have some past love for or whatever, I guess. And Scary Stories
Yes.
book are for sure for both of us. We love them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as fans of horror, we grew up with these books. And when I found out Dylan liked them, I was like, well, this is another reason why we're friends. Because I literally, they were my go-to at the library in elementary school. We always had to read a certain amount of books, like a month, and we had to go to the library, pick out a book, and we would like test on them. And I would always try to check those books out. And a lot of the times they were not there because other kids were like reading them. Like they were so popular. And I remember being so freaked the fuck out by them as a kid. Because obviously we're going to talk about the movie, but we have to obviously, give some love to the books because this is what started it all. And the drawings by Stephen Gamble, and we're talking about the OG books, like not the re-release that came out a couple years ago where they fucking pussified the pictures and made them less scary. Like these were.
But of course they would have done that. I mean, I feel like
Exactly.
in today's day and age, that's something we should have expected, I guess.
I know, but it's like annoying because it's like my
I mean,
my nephew had the books or would read them in school and stuff, and like he brought one home one time, and I was just like, this isn't like, it was obviously the same stories, but the pictures were so like, I think Stephen Gamble's drawings are what makes
they
it,
are, yeah.
like, yeah,
But I don't even know if those were the same stories. I mean, 90% of them were, but I feel like I've seen
they
some,
changed.
and some, like, they were edited a little bit. Like, maybe this line was a little too gruesome or something.
Right. They
Stupid.
no, and that's stupid. I mean, and there was that whole. I mean, we can even talk a little bit about the documentary, but there was that whole ordeal when the books came out about some mother getting pissed off about them and trying to get them pulled, and there was like even a whole court thing about trying to get them pulled, which they did. They weren't pulled, which is good, but I just don't understand that because I mean they're dark and they're scary, but that's like they're like the fun. Like I loved reading them and getting creeped out. Like I would read them at night, and then I would be like, ooh, I should probably stop and getting a little creeped out. But it was like they're I remember you said this, Dylan, like they were easy to read too for like a kid, so they were
Yeah,
fun and enjoyable. They were easy.
they were written very
Yeah,
simply.
exactly. And I loved the pictures. Oh my God, they just so added to it. Stephen Gamble, we got
I
to give you
know.
a round of applause. You're a fucking genius because those pictures are amazing. Even the front cover, I have the first book in front of me right now where it's like the clown like growing out of the ground with like the pipe. It's so fucking
Oh, yeah,
creepy and
that's
cool.
interesting. I
That's
have
an
the treasury, so my cover is
Oh,
the
the haunted
woman
house,
from
right?
the woman from the
Yeah,
haunted
she's
house,
creepy too.
who, interestingly enough, is kind of sort of in this movie too, even though the
I
story,
know.
well, no, the
I know.
story is in a
Sort of.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess to start on the movie,
Yeah.
um, I wanted to start on this broad topic that we talked about before we saw the movie, and then it kind of comes back at the end in my notes, but I have anthology versus traditional storytelling. Do we think that this, having seen it, should have been a classic anthology a la Creepshow? Or are we okay with what it ended up being?
Yeah, that's interesting. Should we answer now or should we wait?
Well, that
Because
was
it
just
kind of.
my
Oh, okay.
opening. They
Well, then
talk
I can
about it
answer.
for, yeah.
I personally, first of all, I do want to say that I really did like the movie. We're obviously going to talk all about it,
Yeah.
and things we liked about it. There are a couple things I didn't like, and actually, interestingly enough, one of the things I thought about, I was like, this would honestly have been better if it was an anthology, just because it could have probably incorporated more stories,
Hmm.
and it would have been interesting to have the focus just be that one story for like, however long the anthology little
Right.
episodes usually are. I think it would have been more interesting. I think it would have allowed them to do more and take more from the books, but I don't know. But I still like the way they did it. I do like the movie, I will say that. But do I think it would have been better? Yes, as an anthology, I do. Maybe because
Yeah,
I
no,
just
I
like
agree.
anthology movies because I love Creepshow.
Right. Yes. No, I agree with that. I also was pleasantly surprised and enjoyed the movie overall for
Yeah,
what it was and the way they kind of because I was very curious how they would have tackled the story. How would they fit the stories in if it's not in an anthology structure? But they did it kind of cleverly, I
right.
guess. But yeah, I would have preferred. We always go back to Creepshow because it's like
Yeah,
there really are. Sadly,
that's
there
the
really aren't that
king of
many.
anthology movie. Yeah,
It is, because sadly there just aren't that
Not that
many
many.
anthologies. That subgenre just doesn't really exist anymore.
Right.
Unless it's like a TV show, because they're bringing Creepshow back as the TV show, which is cool.
Oh, yeah, that is cool.
But
But they don't really think it works, I guess, for movies anymore, which is sad because I think both Creepshow 1, Creepshow 2, are so solid and good, and every story in them is like
yeah,
so amazing. So I don't know
yeah,
why
I wish that subgenre, like
never
lasted
faded
longer.
out. I
Yeah,
know.
'cause they're fun too.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you wanted to talk about it this way. I kind of have my notes structured uh, in the order of the stories that popped up.
Oh
And
yeah, no,
talk
that's a
about.
good idea. Yeah.
So, at least the first one I think I noticed, obviously, the first one that was presented was Harold,
Yeah.
which that was very well done.
I
And
agree. That was so fucking cool. The way he like moved and the way and I like how they kept him simple the way he is in the book. Like he's scary in a simple way because he doesn't I like how they didn't make him like talk or do or like or do anything
yeah,
vocal. He just kind of staggers towards the kid when he comes like alive and it's like holy shit. Like that's what I would see in my head when I would read the book because it says that, in the book he like ends up getting up on the roof and like trotting back and forth for like days and the guy like driving the guys crazy that are in the story in the book. So like
right.
I would always imagine him walking in this really like creepy lumbering way and he does and oh my god, the fact that it's set up in a cornfield was like the perfect like setting for him to come like alive. It was
Yeah,
very eerie. Oh, it was so good. It was
that
so
whole
creepy.
sequence was really, really great.
Yeah.
But part of me was like, part of me when I was watching it was like, okay, this is PG-13, um,
Yeah.
and I guess it's not for kids. Well, it is. I actually saw
I
some
guess like
argument. Somebody reviewed it, and somebody it was like this is not for kids, and I feel like
it's not but it's not
the
overly
same.
gory or like
Right. And
yeah.
that's kind of like the same argument for the book. Like, oh, those are not. No, it's a good gateway. I feel like this is a good
For
gateway
horror.
horror movie.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect way to like yeah, like if
Um,
you're like 10-year-old, you want to take your 10-year-old son to go introduce
yeah,
him to
that'll be
horror or
fine.
even maybe a little younger. I don't know. I grew up on horror so I can't really say what the proper
Yeah,
age is because I've always watched horror and liked
I
horror.
was
So,
3, so I guess
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not good on the topic.
I was 5. I was a little bit older, but
Yeah.
um yeah,
Please don't bring your 3-year-old or your 5-year-old to any movie, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah, that's true. Actually. I love that.
Um,
Little shout
but
out for
no,
Dylan there.
but
uh,
no, because I was in that whole the Harold sequence when he was coming up behind him with a pitchfork. I was kind of like, oh, they're not going to show him like stab him or impale him, and then
they actually did though, didn't they? Like
yeah,
it
they
come
did,
yeah.
and then it was really like intense, I guess, and I should have reread some of the stories, but I don't think it was. You probably remember more than me, but
Mm.
the way that bully kid dies, he like the hay and
Oh yeah,
coming
he
out
starts
of
like
him, and
turning
then
into
he
yeah,
and
it's
then later
gross.
they find the scarecrow and they're like, oh, is this
Yeah, because he's wearing the
whatever
jacket.
his name?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not in the story, is it? Like the people
Um,
don't.
no, it's the story's actually really dark. It's like it's two like
Soup
farmhands that
Brothers,
take care of him or
right?
they take care of like this farmhouse and Harold's the scarecrow and they always fuck with him. At the end
Yeah,
of that one though, he starts to come alive and do creepy shit. So they're like, we need to get the fuck out of here. But then as they're walking away from the house, they forget something that they have to go back for. So they like flip a coin to see who has to go back. And one of them goes back. He never comes back. So then the second guy goes to go look for him. And Harold is up on the roof and like has like skin in his hand that he's like stretching out. It's literally like supposed to be the guy's skin. So he like skins him or whatever. I don't know. It's really dark in the book, but like actually probably darker in the book versus what they did in the movie, I think. But
yeah,
yeah, he
no,
doesn't like
yeah,
turn into
that's
like a scarecrow or anything like it seems like it's implied in the movie. When that started happening though, when I first saw it, I was so confused and I was so grossed out because there was like these weird noises and he was like throwing up hay and like ripping it out
yeah.
of his like oh, it was so weird. I was like that whole sequence was so gross in like a
Well,
good way, like
yeah, yeah.
an
No,
effective way.
I think both versions, like how the book tackled it and how the movie tackled it, I think they're both good. I think
Yeah.
I think that was probably one thing they probably were like, well, we want this PG-13, we can't do the book
Yeah, we can't like have him
ending.
stretch his skin out and
But
like
that would be cool to see.
yeah.
Uh, but I liked how they did it in this, and yeah, Harold was
Oh, he was
very
creepy.
creepy.
He looked just like the book. Like they did such a good job, and we'll talk more about
Yeah.
all the other stories, but they did such a good job at taking Stephen Gammell's art and like making it
Mm.
like, oh my God, it looked so scary.
And what I did remember from the story, like as soon as he showed up and the fucking assholes were hitting him and
Yeah.
fucking with him, I was like, oh, you don't want to do that because I knew what was gonna happen.
Exactly. Like the very beginning of the Scary Stories movie, I think it opens like with them like throwing beer bottles at him and like
Yeah.
eat shit Harold and like smacking him. I'm like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, like, oh, you might not want to do that.
It's
Oh my
funny.
God.
My friend that I went with, she didn't read the books when she was younger, but
Oh.
she was kind of feeling the same thing. Like, that's
Don't.
probably not a good idea.
Yeah, it's just the way that he looks too. It's just like first of all, who would want a scarecrow that looks that fucking creepy? I'm sorry. Like, no.
I know, and
And
didn't he didn't even have like almost half of his torso, like his stomach wasn't there. It was just the pole
yeah, it was a
straight
pole, and
down.
that's why when he came to life and he was like walking, and you could see that it was so. They did that so well. I do have to,
Yeah.
applaud them for that because. And Harold is, I think, the reason why Harold was included in the movie and he was used in a lot of like the trailers and as like the picture for like the movie poster because Harold is one of, if not the most popular from the books. Everybody was aware of that one. Everybody was scared of that one, and that's honestly
Yeah.
maybe the one that did scare me the most story wise. Picture wise, we'll talk about in a little bit, but but
Yes, I
story
think
wise.
yes. I think Harold and another creature, which I know the one you are alluding to, were
Yes,
probably the most well done for sure.
I agree. Yes,
I think
but
for the most part they were all well done.
yeah,
Most of them.
yeah, we'll talk about we'll
Um,
talk about it.
but yeah, no, I think Harold was very well done, and I have no
Me too.
complaints on Harold.
I agree completely.
Was the big toe the next one?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because he's the second one
And
that yeah. Okay.
as we're going, before we go too far into the stories, I did just want to say I said that I thought the way they kind of executed all the stories, I kind of liked it with they made up their own new story, I guess. Um,
Oh yeah, so it's not directly.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
So the way they did it, I think I liked with the book and then the book would just start writing
yeah. That
itself.
was kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that before we get more into the stories. I thought, again, I feel like it should have been a straight anthology, but the way they did that was kind of
Right. Well, I
clever.
definitely need to. I want to talk about all the stories first, obviously, because that's like a good place to start. And
Yeah.
that those are the positives. A lot of positives about the movie are the stories
Hmm.
themselves. But then I do, at the end, when we're done talking about all the stories, I do want to go back and talk about just the general story, because that's where a little bit of the
Yeah.
problems with the movie lie, and I'll talk more about that when we get to it. So we
Okay.
definitely should talk more about like the what is it, Sarah Bellows storyline. I
Yeah.
definitely want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But we can
Yeah. We
stick to
can.
the.
Yeah, we can save that for one after.
Okay.
Um,
So the next one is the big toe, right?
Big Toe, yes, and that's and we mentioned that the woman from the haunted house story, that artwork where she showed up. I
Yeah,
love that they made her the
me
Big
too.
Toe woman
Me
because
too.
the haunted house woman, that artwork, like I said, it's the cover of my treasury. I think that
Yeah,
artwork is also very iconic and very popular in that
it
story.
is. That's why it's the treasure. Like that one scared the. I mean, and I've talked about it a million times on the podcast. I've talked about it with you personally. Like I always get more creeped out by creepy women. I guess Zelda from Pet Cemetery started that for me, and just ever since then, it's always been women are more effective in horror for me personally. So when I remember flipping through the books as a kid and I saw that with like her tangly hair, and I was like, oh my god, I couldn't even look at it like at night. I was like, no, I gotta like flip through. Like she always freaked me out. So I love how
Yeah.
they kind of meshed. And I didn't even notice it at first until you honestly saw the movie. And so I saw the movie before Dylan, just to establish
Mhm.
for anybody listening. I saw the movie before Dylan, and then he went and saw it, and then I ended up seeing it again. But I didn't even notice that she was her at first. Like I just thought it was like this, and I thought it was really creepy. I was like, oh my god, that looks so good and creepy. But I didn't even
Yeah.
put two and two together until you said something. I'm like, oh shit, that's the haunted house. That's awesome. And because in the Big Toe story, the actual story from the book, you don't see even in the
Yeah. You
artwork
know.
like what it is, like what the
Yeah.
who's missing his toe. So
Right.
I
So
like
I
that
thought that
they
was a
meshed
really
them.
yeah, that was a
Yeah, a
really
good use of
smart
her,
way to include her without having to include the haunted
the
house.
haunted
Although
house.
it
It's
kind they used the
yeah,
name. They used the name at
yeah,
the
but
end, but
not
they
the
didn't use the
story
story.
really. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, she was really creepy, and I think they like maybe you can't. I have to see the movie again. Maybe you can't recognize that that's the same woman, like unless it's like a close up. but I've seen images of like the practical effects and things, and
Right.
you can tell 100% tell that it's her.
Yeah, no, and the second time watching, I was like, wow, I'm an idiot. How did I not even know that like I thought she was super creepy the first time I saw it, but I didn't even really put two and two together. And then when you said it, and then I saw it again, it's definitely obvious. Like they definitely were doing that, like modeling her off the haunted house. And
Yeah,
I love the creepiest, like the thing I like about this movie is obviously there was a ton of jump scares. We always got to say that because that's just the new way. That's just the way it is. But there were moments where it was subtle, like when, like I said, when Harold first came to life and he's just like, you just see him kind of glide by in the corn, but it's like real quiet. You just see something kind of go by and the kid's like, what the fuck? And then he's
yeah,
missing from the pole. That's so creepy. With the big toe, I don't know how much you like fully remember, but it's so creepy. You get like one full shot of her at the end of a dark hallway, and that's like really the
yes,
only
I
time you see
remember.
her. And it's quiet and she's just like walking and the floorboards are creaking and she just appears, and instead of it like boom, like she's in your face jump scare, I think there is a jump scare with her a little bit later, but like it's just her walking slowly up the hallway and it's so fucking creepy and effective. Like I love the way they
Right,
slowed down some stuff.
right. And I do have to say with the big toe,
Mm-hmm.
I obviously that story itself was always just gross and like made no
Yes.
sense. Like the
Yeah.
like somebody just stumbled upon a toe sticking out of the ground
And
and
like,
oh
ooh, let's eat.
this will flavor up my stew.
I know, right?
But I also kind of love that this movie in spots was kind of gross,
Oh yeah.
like some of the stories, because when he was like I thought I did really like again it was the story started to be written and the two friends and then they saw I don't really even remember a lot of the characters' names,
I know, me neither. It's bad.
um but their other friend who was at home alone, his parents went away or something, and then they saw it
Yeah.
was writing it and whatever. And I kind of loved that it was creepy. Like he just opened the fridge, he was on the phone with his mom or whatever, and he took
Yeah.
out the stew,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Well, somebody must have made it." I love that the stew just magically
Like
appeared, like
appears. Yeah,
it
because
just
it's like implied that you don't hear his mom obviously, but it's implied that his mom's like, "What stew? What are you talking about? I didn't make that." Well,
yeah,
somebody had to. Yeah, so
I
it's
know,
like it
I
just
know,
like the stories
but
like affect everything and making
yeah,
stuff appear. It was so gross when he pulled the toe out of his mouth too. I think
I
that
was
was
gonna
pretty
say that
effective
that
too.
was the really gross part. I was saying like,
Yeah, and then
ugh,
there were eyeballs in it. Like after he drops the stew, because after he pulls the toe out, he like drops the thing of stew, and like then there's like eyeballs that roll out and shit. I was like, ooh, that's
yeah, yeah.
gross.
So part of me does like that they made certain aspects of the stories kind of just they're horrifying,
Flow
but
with the
some of them
movie.
are yeah, but
Yeah.
some of them are just gross, like the
Yeah, I
original
know.
stories. So I
That's
thought that was
true.
nice that they didn't
Yeah, like
shy
wonderful
away from
sausage, which
it.
isn't
Yeah.
in this movie, but that shit was disgusting in the book.
Yes.
Um, no, but
Um,
yeah, I liked, because when you hear this the big toe, when I heard the big toe was in this, I was like, how are they possibly gonna pull that off and make it actually creepy? Like the
and
big toe's kind of like
not
goofy
make
and
it a
stupid.
joke like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that people
yeah.
who haven't read the story are gonna see that and think it's just stupid.
Yeah, because like when my older sister, used to read the books to me when I was like little, like she would be like, she would read that one and she'd be like, "Where is my toe?" and like make it all dumb, and like I'd be like, "This one's stupid," like ha ha ha. Like even as a kid, like I never really was scared of that one, but that one is as well a very very popular story in
Yeah,
the scare
and I
stories.
believe
So
it's the first. It's actually the first story, so
yeah,
it's
in the
cool.
first book. So
Yeah,
yeah,
cool that it was included for that reason too. Um,
yeah,
and then I did kind of like how the characters were kind of just like they didn't really find bodies; they kind of just disappeared.
yes,
Like
yeah,
Harold, they kind of were like, "Is this that kid?
that
Is this
kid,
that
yeah,
bully?" But
yeah,
then the big toe, the kid hides underneath the bed and then
and then he
looks,
just
and then he's just
pulled into
dragged
a
away.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was cool. That
yeah.
was cool too.
So I was added to the kind of creepy supernatural element of it that
Yeah, because
they
it's
didn't
like
just find their
where
dead bodies; they disappeared.
but it like to me it like implies like, and again we're gonna talk more about this towards the end, like maybe there will be a sequel, maybe these kids are still alive, they're just
Yeah,
somewhere, like they get pulled into some type of maybe like supernatural world or whatever, I don't know, because the fact that we never saw any bodies, I'm like maybe they actually are alive. But the bully kid like straight up looked like he turned in, like he was like pulling shit out of his, like that was
right.
nasty. but
Yeah.
but all the other ones, like it's just very vague like what happened, so they just kind of like get dragged somewhere or absorbed, which we'll talk about in the next story. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's interesting. It is interesting the way that they did it. And
Right.
they didn't obviously they did want this to be for kids, but it's still sort of like, it's like that in between thing where it's like I
Right.
feel like they wanted kids to go see it and everything because it's their like kids stories, but also this movie I think was mainly made for us adults that grew up with these books. So they have like
Right.
adult themes, but I like that they didn't show all this gore and these bodies getting like that because that's not like what the books were ever really about either. Like, you
Yeah.
know, so I like that.
So yeah, I thought that one was also really well done. I don't think I have anything else to say on it. Oh, it was kind of anytime this something like this happens in a movie or whatever, it kind of it's just like it gets to me. Like when he was being dragged, like the woman I guess was dragging him into oblivion or the darkness, and
Right.
his nails were just scratching on the ground,
I
and that's
know.
that's kind of and that was kind of creepy and cool. That's kind of how they felt
Yeah.
like the friends like
Oh,
moved
like
the bed
found.
and then
Yeah.
the his nail tracks just kind of stopped at the wall,
I
which
know
is really creepy.
that was creepy. That was cool.
The next one, I
Yeah,
believe,
what is the
was
next one?
the red spot
Oh, I
because
forgot about that one.
yeah, the sister goes
Yeah.
first, and she's the only one that, well, besides the main two kids, she's the only one that doesn't disappear. Like they save her.
Right. She's actually
Um,
able to.
and I do want to say just because I grew up loving the books, some moments in this
Mhm.
kind of gave me the same kind of like geeky excitement. Like I'm really pumped, and this is really
Right.
getting me super happy. The same way, like, and you can't relate to this, but the same way, like, a big superhero movie gets me pumped because
Oh
it's something I grew up with, and there were certain moments that I was like, oh my God, I'm so fucking. And
yeah.
one of them was with the red spot when she gets shoved in there by that asshole in the room at
Oh
the beginning of
yeah.
the movie,
And
and like
she.
a cobweb falls on her face, and
Yeah.
like you hear her say, "There's a spider. He's biting me," and I was like, "Oh my God, that's this." It made me really excited and happy to see
Yeah.
that later.
Yeah, no, and there was like a couple moments like that where I was literally like, because I went the first time I went to see it, I saw it with Ed, so I'm literally like in the theater when something would happen, I would like grab his arm and be like, "Babe, that's from the book. That's from." I would get like so nerdy excited, and he grew up reading the books too, but he doesn't, have. I have like a really
Yeah,
strong memory with a lot of the stories in those books because I didn't just stop reading them once I, grew like I literally grew up with these books and would go back to them from time to time and read them, and I still read them to this very day, which,
mhm.
so I have like very clear memories of a lot of the stories. So like when something even because there was like little vague, which I do want to talk about too, little vague hints at other stories too, like Sam's New Pet, which is
Mhm.
the one about the sewer rat that the fucking parents give their kid for some reason, and it's called Sam's New Pet, and it's in the books. Like they mention that in the
Yeah,
movie, but it's like she wrote it, the main character girl, and I wish I should pull up the IMDb so I can remember character names, but I think the
I have
main
a
girl's name is
couple.
Stella. I
Stella,
think that's
yeah,
her
I,
name.
I have
Yeah,
a couple names written down.
yeah. So like she apparently is a writer too, and she wrote, and then the other main character guy, God, Ramon, is that his name?
Ramon.
Yeah, he's like flipping through, and he's like, "Ooh, Sam's new pet. It turns out to be a sewer rat." Like I was like, that's pretty awesome that they, even if the stories aren't part of the movie, they kind of throw little hints at them, and I would get so nerdily excited every time I like mentioned what. So I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're saying, and yeah, the spider thing, and I kind of saw from the trailers that she was the one that the red spot happens to. So when
Hmm.
like the spiders first fell on her, I'm like, that's pretty clever. That's how it happens.
I know, and as CG as it was, when they
Oh, the spiders,
start
yeah.
pouring out of her face, and then she's
Yeah.
just in the corner, and there looks like there's thousands of spiders just all on
Oh my
top of
God.
her.
Yeah.
That was,
Fuck that.
I know how much you love spiders.
Yeah.
That was really, as CG as it was, I think it was done really well.
No, I
Uh,
agree. I hate
that
CG
because that
spiders just because they don't look as creepy as obviously, but they're not
right.
gonna really put thousands of
Well,
spiders on
that's
the
what I
poor
was
actor.
gonna
So.
say. We've said before, like, I have no problem with CG when it's done when something cannot be done practically, and they obviously
Right.
are not gonna pour thousands of spiders on this actress
Hey,
or
back in the 80s
double.
they may have been. They'd be like, "Suck it up, girl."
Well,
But no, yeah, I get why they did do it. And it was still effective because like seeing the shot of her in the corner when you just see all of them, like it freaked me out. And like when he has to throw the water on her, which was actually pretty smart that he threw the water on her to get them like to go away. Oh, it was so creepy.
yeah,
And I hate spiders. They're definitely one of my like phobias. So that to me that was creepy. And I'm glad they included the red spot. That's another pretty popular one too. I think because that's like an old like a lot of them. A lot of the stories in the Alvin Schwartz books are like urban legends and stuff. And that's like a big urban legend. Like, oh, the spider, bites her and goes in and lays eggs in her face. Like, ew, that's so creepy. Because that's like a fear of like, even if you're not deathly afraid of spiders or bugs, like that's like a fear I feel like everybody has. Like something just laying eggs in your fucking body. Like, ew, it
yeah,
just comes pouring out of you.
yeah, yeah.
It's creepy.
That was a very again, very well done. I don't really have any complaints with most of the stories.
Yeah, me
There was
neither.
you know, and I'm not being serious when I say this, but there was just like the nitpicky, fan of the books and me that was, even with the trailers, I was like, and again, I'm not being serious, and nobody
Right.
takes this serious, but even in the trailers, the girl was in a bright pink dress and she had blonde hair, and I was like, "Ugh, that's not the girl from the picture. She
Yeah.
got long black hair and she's kind of ugly and dopey looking."
Yeah.
But
That's so true, though.
that being
That is
said,
true. They kept her name the same, though. Her name is Ruth in the movie, and it is in the book as well. Ruth is like
oh,
yeah, which I
I didn't
love.
even remember that. Well, that's
Yeah.
really cool. No, I didn't even remember that.
My
But I
sister, when I went to see it, that was the first thing she noticed. She was like, "Her name's Ruth." I was like, "Yep." Like like little things like that stuck out to us, and like I was surprised she even remembered that. She's like, "I know what's gonna happen to her. Her name's Ruth." I'm like, "Yeah."
her whole aesthetic I also ended up really liking. Like she was just very distinct, and I loved the whole sequence when she's like doing like a play or something or a musical,
Oh yeah, she's like an
and then
yeah.
one of her friends is like, "You got to
You need
go
yeah,
cover that up."
and she gets all upset, yeah, because it's
And
like
when
you get
she's
your
just sort of plodding away, and um, you hear her like heels, just whatever as she's going. I thought
yeah
that whole sequence was done well because it kind of built the tension as you knew what was going to happen. When
yeah
that first
exactly
spider leg kind of moved as she touched it,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
and then when it's like little like one of its legs just ends up poking out. Oh, that was so gross and creepy. And she like touched it and then it moved. Ooh, so creepy.
yeah. There was I wish I wrote down and remembered more of them, but I thought her brother, and that was another name. He's in the next story, so I guess we
Oh,
could
I love him. He was my
progress to
favorite
that.
character.
Yeah, he was really funny.
He
There was
was, and not in like an over the top way where they're trying to have comic relief and they have some dumb character.
right.
Like he was actually funny. Like he was,
I have
and
one of his lines written down. I wish I had remembered more, but there was one with his sister, um, right before Stella and Ramon tell them about this book and what's happening, and
right.
like he made some comment about her face and the the boil or whatever on her face. I don't remember
Yeah.
what it was, but it was really funny. I wish I remembered.
Yeah,
But
because she's like blotting at it or something in the
yeah,
bathroom, and he's like, and he says something, and she slams the door. Yeah.
right. Yeah, but there was one line from him right after that when they try to burn the book and then it doesn't work and the book is like just completely fine and they stomp on it or whatever
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
says something like, "This is why I hate books. This is
Yeah,
why
this
I
is
hate
why I don't.
reading.
Yeah, this is why
This
I
is why I
don't
don't
read.
read."
I know he has a
Makes no
lot of
sense.
funny ones. I should have like jotted some down too so I could remember. But I know that he was like he was honestly like I think, and we'll talk about like the acting too and the kids because I've heard that these kids in this movie were kind of compared to the ones in the It remake, which I think is pretty fair because they all were pretty good actors. Stella was really
Yeah.
really good. I'm sorry I don't know any of the actors' actual names, but the girl who played Stella was amazing. And the character we're talking about now, which I don't remember his name, which is sad because he was my
Chuck.
favorite. He was oh Chuck, yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you remember that. But Chuck was my favorite. He was really funny and like I said, not over the top. He was just like the perfect amount of comic relief for the movie. So, and
Right.
his whole dynamic with Ruth, like his sister, I love that too. So,
Another example of why this parts of this movies were just gross. Like at the beginning, what was
oh, when he's like fishing the poop
fishing
out
his
of
own poop out of the instead of like finding
for
a
a
dog
prank.
turd. Instead
I
of like
know,
finding
right?
a dog turd on the sidewalk, he's fishing his own poop out of the.
I know that's nasty.
Oh, that's what they
Uh,
used it for. They like threw it in the bully's car
yeah,
on
yeah.
fire, and
So the
just
yeah, it's like I was so confused by that at first. I'm like, what is going on? But like, they obviously were trying to get some type of revenge because he's like the
yeah,
bully kid or whatever. And then I was like, oh okay. But then he's like, oh, he sees his sister in the car, and he's like, I know she was going on a date. I didn't know it was with him, like, because he put his sister at risk too. I'm like, that's a little.
I know. And the asshole kids, what that whole scene, what a prick. Like she says to him, like, I thought you said we were gonna go do something, just us, and then he's got his
Yeah,
ass
and his
friends with him too.
friends in the back. Yeah, he was a good asshole character, a very good like throwback to the bully characters of like Stephen King movies. Like he kind of reminded me of what's his name? The one in It. What's the bully's name in It?
Henry Bowers.
Yeah, Henry Yeah, he kind of reminded me of like a dick like him. Henry Bowers
Yeah.
is little
Yeah.
more psychotic, but but it was so mean. Remember when the bully guy says something to Stella too about like her mom, and she like gets really upset
Yeah, I don't
uh,
understand. That's such an exaggeration in movies, and they do it all the
of
time. Like
how mean
we
people
just
are.
re yeah, we just reviewed the Scream movies, and that in the first one, people are like making fun, like those two exaggerated girls from
Oh
not
yeah,
could have been in not another teen movie or something.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but they're like making fun of Sydney because her mom died and her mom was a slut. I don't, and like yeah, in this, he was making fun of Stella because her mom died and trying to prod her with that. It's like
I
in
know.
real life, as horrible as kids can be,
Yeah,
I don't see that. That just seems like
yeah.
that
Like
doesn't
talking about
happen unless it's a movie. Making
right,
fun
because
of you
like
being
why would
a dead
you?
parent.
Right, exactly. Like, I mean, like you said, kids can be mean, and there's they can say a lot of hurtful shit. But I seriously doubt unless you're a like psychopath, you're gonna talk about somebody
Right.
that's you know.
And this kid in this movie definitely seems like a psychopath.
Yeah, he had those tendencies too. I mean, he was
Not
done really
as
well though.
Yeah, not as psychotic as Henry Bowers, but
Henry Bowers, like, he got like when he
he
does
was
the
also
thing.
like the kid in this movie. He was also like a racist, like Henry, wasn't he?
Oh
With
yeah, because
the
he's yeah
phone, he
when he
like
says
painted
yeah
on his car. Yeah,
yeah that was fucked up. That whole thing, I was like, whoa.
yeah.
Um,
There are interestingly a lot of it comparisons. The kids and they have the bully, and even this movie is also a period
Oh
uh
yeah, because it was the
period
60s.
piece.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. I that's and when I first heard people were comparing the kids to the kids in It, I was like, is it really? Are they really that good? But I honestly was very impressed by all the actors in this. I think they all had chemistry. They all did really good. Stella was so good. Like I hope she ends up doing more
yeah,
movies. Like she like carried the whole movie because she's like the main. Well, her and Ramona are like the main characters,
yeah,
but she was really good.
yeah.
So we can talk more about them when we're done. Because what's the next one? The next story is it the dream?
It is the dream. I did just want to throw in. We were just talking. I just brought up the period piece, the whatever. I
Right.
love that the movie was specifically set in 1968, I believe,
Mhm.
because at the beginning of the movie, they were Ramon, and that's how they got met. They sort of hid in his car. He was at a drive-in for Night of the Living Dead,
Oh, yeah, Night of the
and I
Living Dead
love
was
that was
on.
the
Yeah,
exact year it was released. I love that it was that specific. It
that's
was very
awesome.
cool. So the Night of the Living Dead was brand new to them. And like Stella apparently said, yeah, at one point in the movie she said it's like the best movie of the year. It's like,
I
yeah,
know, I love
I don't
that.
know any other movie that came out in 1968 off the top of my head.
That's true. I know. I do like. I love when they like. I like when things take place because I love the 60s and 70s anyway. Like I have that nostalgia thing, and I love that. I
Yeah,
love old music and old movies. So like when I first saw it took place in the 60s. I was like, this is awesome, and it makes sense because of story elements later, like like Ramon like dodging like the draft thing and
yeah,
like the whole
yeah,
drive-in sequence. Like I do like the fact that it took place in the 60s. I think it like fit with the whole
hmm
story.
yeah. No, that was
But
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Um, but yes, the next story was The Dream, and I
probably
gotta,
the most effective.
yes, I gotta say, this was again they were mostly all well done, but this one was
Yes.
really
Oh my
like
God.
we could just start, of course, with the
Oh
Pale
my
Lady, I
God.
think is her name.
Haley. Yeah.
She was so creepy and well done.
I
Like
know.
there was just even a little. I think it was the first time they like really showed her like pan like besides like distant at the end of a corridor and like the red
Right.
room they were
Right.
saying that was
Yeah.
really creepy.
That
But
was
my
creepy.
favorite, I loved when they panned up to her and she was just sort of like her hands were moving a little bit. And as
Yeah.
it panned up to her, she had like a little smile on her face. And when she
Oh my God.
smiled, she like closed her eyes all cute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and
And
if you listen close, she was like making like a noise too. Like when it panned up, or she was like,
yeah,
it was like, it was like I don't know. It was weird. Like I
I
can't even
know.
describe it. It was like a weird
Um,
noise that they had her make, and I'm like, ooh,
I,
that's
I,
effective.
but I love how the story was set up like shortly beforehand, where he said he had a
A
dream,
dream
and
about
then
yeah,
when they were driving to the insane asylum or whatever it was,
right.
or just the hospital,
Oh, the
uh,
hospital. Yeah.
he was sleeping in the car, so he was having the dream again.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it was very, it was that was very well done. But I know I loved, and I remember reading something that somebody pointed out that the pale lady was actually like the good guy in that story when
In
she
the
was
story,
warning.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
she's creepy as fuck though.
she is, and I love how she I love how the whole sequence was set up where he was just every corner he took, she was at the end, and she was
I
just
know. That was so,
working her way slower and slower to him, no matter what corner.
yeah. And even though there was just one, like it wasn't like there were like five pale ladies, it was just the one, but like she was literally everywhere he turned. That was so creepy. So there was nowhere he could go.
Right.
And she just kind of like absorbed. When she got to him, I was like, what are they gonna do? And she kind of like hugs him, but like then just like
I
crushes him
know.
and absorbs him. It was so weird, but so cool.
I
Like
know.
she was
Oh, I
so
just got
creepy.
this thought. How I said that, in the dream in the books, she's the pale lady is warning, and she's kind of the good guy. Like, get out
Yeah.
of here. This is not a
Right.
good. It's not a safe place.
Yeah.
Maybe with your, I don't. Well, it wouldn't work with everybody, but maybe with your theory that maybe the characters just went somewhere else.
Right.
Maybe the pale lady is still the good guy in this story, because
Oh,
maybe
and she
her taking him in and absorbing him, maybe there was
saved
something
him.
else and she was trying to save him or whatever. It's
That's
interesting
actually
because how she was written in the book.
yeah, no, that's true. That's I didn't even think about it like that because I was just like, did she just eat him? Like, what is going
And
on?
that's why she gets
But
bigger. That's why she's so fat.
yeah, she just absorbs kids. That's why she's so.
Oh,
No,
but yeah,
but talking about the comparisons to the book, like they nailed that shit. Like they got Harold good, but that's kind of a simple one to get. But like with the dream,
the
I was kind
scarecrow.
of
Yeah,
worried, but they literally nailed it. Like it looks
yeah,
exactly like how she looks in the fucking book, and it's so good. And that picture used to scare the fuck out of me. Again, going back to the whole be scared of creepy women thing. My sister and I would always flip to that story and like just stare at that picture and be like, why is she so fucking creepy? And she's this weird like carved smile that they got right too, like on her face and like the
yeah.
long stringy hair, and she's like huge and big and oh my god, it was so good.
I know.
She's so
Yeah,
creepy.
yeah, she was absolutely the best
I
creature.
I agree.
You know,
That whole sequence with the red room and being in the hospital too, like was really
as iconic
interesting.
as that story is, and that image of her in the book,
Yeah.
for her in the movie to top Harold, because Harold, I think Harold is the
Yeah.
top story.
Yeah.
For her to out creepy Harold and
Yeah. That's true.
be more
They did a
effective
good
than him,
job.
even though he's really effective. Yeah,
No,
she was.
he was probably my second. Like she's
Yeah,
the most effective, and she's the creepiest to me personally. Actually, when Ed and I first saw it, we were kind of in a debate. I first went with Harold. I was like, no, I think Harold was done the best, and he was like, no, that dream lady. Oh my god, she was so creepy. And then I saw it the second time, and I'm like, yeah, no, the dream was definitely the creepiest. But I do still Harold's like a very close second because I like the cornfield. You know, I like where it takes place
yeah,
there, and just the little subtle things like him just kind of walking by in the corn, like that was creepy. But she like the fact that he's like Chuck's turning everywhere and she's just there. Like there's no escape from
right.
her. She's
Even
gonna
like
ugh.
right at the end when he's just turning around, and
Yeah.
she's right there in front of him, no matter which way he's turning. That was.
Oh my god, I know it was so that was really well
And at
done.
the end,
And
she just wanted a
a
hug. That's all
hug,
she
yeah.
wanted.
She's kind of adorable. No.
I know.
In
No,
a
she
creepy
is.
way.
Yeah, she is. 'Cause the moment I said when it first panned up to her, I was like, she's adorable in a really creepy way,
In
which
a
makes her
really
more
creepy
creepy.
that's true actually, yeah. Like a creepy like old lady type thing. Like I
Yeah,
don't
kind
know,
of.
like
Yeah,
it's like creepy but cute.
yeah.
I'm glad you thought that because I kind of thought that too. But I'm like, is that weird that she's kind of like adorable,
No, no,
but
that
yeah, it
I
helps
keep
though. It
seeing
adds
that
to it.
moment in my head when she's just smiling and she closes her eyes and
Yeah, it's like oh my god.
she's
Well,
so
how did they?
happy.
Yeah, she's
I don't know.
she's so happy that she's about to crush this kid. Or like you said, maybe she does mean well because she was like
Yeah.
the good spirit or whatever in the book. So maybe she actually does mean well. But
Maybe all the scary stories they were all trying to save the kids from Sarah Bellows or whatever.
oh, maybe so even the big toe might
Yeah.
be good.
I don't know how the spiders were saving her, but
Yeah, they didn't want her to
so
put on that play. Maybe she would have died on
maybe.
stage or something. I don't know.
I did just
um,
think of this before we move on from this story. I do kind of like the different, like all the different set pieces were very, like iconic, like horror locations. You had the
yeah,
cornfield, you had the insane
hospital. Yeah,
asylum, the hospital. I think that was really cool that they used, very iconic
classic. Like yeah,
because I mean the cornfield that was in Harold because that was a farm. I don't know if there was any specific like sequence written in the book where it had to do with a mate. I don't remember,
right.
but like the dream was like the story was Lucy Morgan like bought a new apartment and then she had the dream about it and whatever. But for
Yeah.
them to take that, put it in like a horror location, a hospital, I thought that was really cool that they.
Yeah, and it actually worked because at first I was like, oh, like I guess at first I wanted it to be like identical to the book, and I was like, no, it has to
Right.
take place in like a weird hotel room with like or apartment. I forget in the book what
Yeah.
it's like. She goes into like a room with like trap door looking things on the floor
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, like the carpet has a weird pattern, and then it like sticks out to her in the dream, and then she actually goes there in real life. So I was kind of hoping they would do something like with that setting, but I actually do prefer and like that they had it in a hospital. And I do like the whole red room thing, like when the lights turned red, like
Yeah.
it just added to the like. And I like too the shot of her before you even see it pan up, and she's just down the hallway. Like that was so
Yeah.
eerie for her to just be. You just see her like coming up, and you're like, oh fuck, I know
Uh-huh.
what this is.
And just the build-up of her slowly walking, and he couldn't get away from her no matter
I
where he went,
know. Again,
was
I really
very.
like the subtlety. Like
I
again, this
love that.
movie's.
Speaking
No, go
of,
ahead.
with subtlety, and there were some jump scares in this, but I like that, like, because I feel like it's something you would expect, like that he'd turn a corner and then boom, she's in his face,
Yeah.
like
No,
that
that
kind of jump scare.
yeah,
I like they
which
didn't
they
do that.
can, yeah, and jump scare. I mean, I gotta start just getting used to them because they're here to stay apparently in horror. They're just the new thing, which is fine. But I do like how in this movie again there were the slow build up subtle moments like with the big toe how you just see her at the end of the hallway that there eventually was a jump scare with her but the first initial like
Hmm.
her introduction was just her slowly creeping up that hallway and it was so eerie and creepy. It kind of almost reminded me of like a shot like in Resident Evil remake like when you're like walking through a hallway and there's like a zombie at the other end of the hallway. Like it was that very subtle creepiness that I like. And even in the dream
Or like
sequence of the red
I
room.
just, well, not to interrupt, but I just thought of
No,
like
you're fine.
I thought of The Shining, like when Danny turns the corner and the twins are at the end of the hall.
Yeah, like stuff like that I just love. And like even the Harold sequence, I eventually obviously had a jump scare too when he sees him, but like at
Right.
first there's like a little subtle moment where he's walking the bully kid's walking through the cornfield and you just see something like almost out of the corner of his eye, you just see something kind of go by like up and he's like what the fuck was that? Like and he's supposed to be all drunk and everything, which that actor was pretty good by the way cuz like he's like staggering around. I'm like, yeah, he's all drunk cuz he
I
like
know.
gets
There
home and
was
his mom
he was
yells at him.
he was kind of that whole thing was kind of funny. I he clearly comes home drunk, and the mom is like, "You were supposed to deliver the eggs to
Yeah, to the
whoever,"
yeah.
and then he's like, "You." She makes him do it,
He's like,
and
now.
yeah, but she's like, he's clearly drunk, and she's still like, "Yeah, you're shit faced. Go deliver eggs.
To the
Go
neighbors.
collect some eggs. Deliver some eggs.
Yeah,
Completely shit faced. That'll
you'll be
make
all
our
right.
yeah, and that'll make our
It was the
business look
60s.
good."
It was the 60s. Parents were like, "No, you're gonna still do your chores." But remember though, it's so funny. He comes home and she's like, Are you drunk again?" He's like, "It's Halloween." Like that's his excuse for why he's drunk again. I love it. Like there
Uh,
was some little moments like that with the bully even that were kind of like funny. So
uh,
to wrap up on the dream, I think I seriously the stories we've talked about so far, I have no complaints. Like everything was, and the dream was my favorite.
yeah.
So done
Hmm.
extremely well. And they captured that image from the book and were able to put it on screen like flawlessly. Like it looks just
Right.
like that picture and even
Yeah,
creepier.
I think I read somebody say like that they didn't think that the movie successfully translated the artwork from the books, and I don't agree
Really?
with that at
What?
all. I don't
Me
agree with that at
neither.
all.
Me
I think
neither.
The Dream is the perfect example, but even Harold and the Haunted
Yeah.
House Woman and
I mean,
um,
I mean, and Hugh and I are pretty picky, and with especially me, like when it comes to things from my childhood, I hate remakes. I hate when things are so. If I'm not complaining about it, it's fine. Like
yeah,
I think everything was on point. Like Harold, 100% looks like the picture. So creepy. The dream looks like how could they have made that more accurate? She looks just like her. The creepy smile, the long like stringy hair, the big bulky
right.
body. Like I think it looks exactly like her. I don't see how they could
Well,
have done it more accurately.
on that to transition into the final story from the books, where whoever said that, I guess has maybe they were talking about this one. Um, Me, Taido, T. Walker,
Oh yeah.
I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah, I
I
wasn't
didn't
either.
think. Um, I should really read the books. I honestly don't remember quite what that story is about.
Oh, Meet
Um,
Tony Walker is no.
yeah,
See, this is where in the point of the movie where I do have a little bit of complaints because in the book, Mitai Tony Walker was the one where um there's a haunted house and nobody will ever stay in it, but this like millionaire in the town offers like a bunch of money to somebody that will stay there overnight. A young boy's like, well,
Right.
I'll do it if I can have my dog. So then he stays in the house. They say like every night a bloody head would fall from like the fireplace, and that's why nobody wanted to stay there. And then
Right.
when the kid brings his dog in, remember his dog starts answer. So you hear me, Tony Walker. It's supposed to be like the ghost saying that. I don't know what that means. And then the dog answers and says, Lynchy, Kinchy, Collie, Molly, Dingo,
Oh, right,
Dingo.
right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Now I
that one.
remember. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought when I think I said this, but I feel like then they took the title and just took the line from that and didn't really take anything else from the story except for the dog. But there was a dog, but the dog just ran away.
The dog more or less just kind of growled, though he didn't like
Yeah, he just
talk, which is what he's
right,
supposed to do. It might have seemed silly to do that, but that's how the story goes.
right.
Like so.
And I feel like they, from what I remember of it, did they instead kind of take elements from Aaron Kelly's Bones, uh, and combine it? Because
I no, I thought that at first. Aaron Kelly's Bones is like actually like a comedy one. It is
yeah,
about a dead body with like the bones all, but like I think the what's the guy's name in the movie? What's the one
the
that's after
jangly
Ramon?
man.
Yeah, I think that came from. There's a story. I'm actually flipping through the yeah. There's a story called. Is it What Do You Come For? Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a
Huh,
story called "What Do You Come For," and it's a picture in the book of feet hanging from a fireplace, and
right.
it's just about an old woman who's sitting there one day, and like two legs drop down on her floor. Then I'm literally reading it right now, and then a body, two arms, and an old man's head, and then they all get yeah. So they kind of combined in Me, Tony Walker, and "What Do You Come For," but
Hmm.
wasn't that big of a fan of this one. I
Yeah,
agree with
if
you.
that's I'm remembering that story now. If that's what they did do, they didn't do it well.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think they as well as good as they portrayed the Dream and Harold and the Big Toe. If that's what they did here, then they just did a complete disservice to both of those stories.
I know,
It
and
wasn't done
I get kind of trying to mesh the stories together so you can include a little bit more, but I really
right.
wish they would have just focused on because I was so excited to see, oh, what's next? What's going to come after Ramon? I was like excited about it, and then when I first when it first wrote Meets I Told You because the book started writing itself and the sheriff was looking at. Remember the sheriff was like, are you shitting me? I was laughing so hard because like just his reaction. But like when it first wrote Meet I Told You Walker, I got really excited, and that's one of Ed's favorite stories. He always talks about that one. So like we both got pretty excited, but the execution was kind of like disappointing. I will say that was the only one though, honestly. And I think it
Right.
was like the whole like CG like jangly man. Like I just didn't. I
Yeah,
don't know. Wasn't a fan. It didn't
yeah.
look that practical. It was. I do like the whole contortionist thing because apparently they got like an actual
Yeah.
contortionist to like do his movements and shit, which was really really cool. So I give that dude credit. That's pretty awesome and creepy the way he can move his fucking body like that because that's fucking weird. But
Right, but then it looks like it was sort of just masked over with a lot of CG.
with a lot of it, yeah, no, I agree. And I didn't like the. I never like when. I like when things don't speak. Like remember I said I like how they didn't have Harold like say anything. He was just silent. Same thing with the dream. So I think it always takes away from the horror because when something just doesn't speak and it just comes after you, that's creepy. I mean the big toe spoke because she was saying like where's my toe or whatever, but she had like a real creepy like voice. I don't know, it kind of worked, but like
Right, that was
with the
fine.
jangly man when he's like Ramon and he's just like it just kind of felt like kind of cheesy.
He came off to me a lot like I wrote a Resident Evil creature or a Silent Hill creature, or the way he's all jangly and his limbs are long, whatever. He
Yeah,
looked like kind of like an Until Dawn Wendigo,
a
um,
little.
a
Yeah, I
little
can see
bit.
that.
But
Yeah,
I didn't like it because he was just fast and there was nothing creepy about him. It was just like he's this aggressive
creature.
monster.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
No,
care
I
for
didn't
it.
either.
It
I
wasn't
didn't either.
scary.
Yeah, and it was more like it turned into sort of like a little action sequence once he came in because like Ramon's like driving the car and he's like on top of the
Yeah.
car and I don't know. I didn't really
I,
like that one either. I'm glad we do agree on that one. And I don't like how it wasn't really one of the stories because there's no picture of the jangly man in the book. Like in that story, What Do You Come For? It's just a picture of a fireplace with like the feet. So like they
yeah.
kind of had to just kind of make him up. And I wish they would have just picked something that had a more clear image from the book because
Hmm.
I wanted to see more from the book obviously, and I just felt like that wasn't really a thing. But I don't know. He's the only
Yeah.
one though that was like not done that great.
yeah. It was just a little disappointing how strong the other stories were to end on this one.
That's
Kind
true.
of.
Yeah, maybe that's
Kind
why
of.
it
And
was
then,
disappointing.
yeah. And then when they moved into the haunted house, which wasn't that story at all,
Right.
they just used the name. That
The
was
name.
also, I mean, I guess that was kind of like scary for the character and kind of freaky how they set it up that she's in the house, but everybody thinks
Oh yeah,
she's
she's Sarah
Sarah
Bellows.
Bellows, and then they
Yeah.
throw her in the basement or whatever. She's
Well,
like in the
that's
story.
I see. This is I think from me, Walker onward is where I have a lot of issues with the movie,
Uh-huh.
which is sad because it's the end and you would want like to go out on a high note. I thought the whole movie was extremely solid up until they get locked in the jail cell and it's like and then Meet I Toady Walker starts. When I first again saw it written when Sarah Bellows started writing Meet I Toady Walker, I got so excited. But and then having the dog even in there, I was like, this is really cool, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then following that, going into the Sarah Bellows' house, and then it writing the haunted house, but it had nothing to do with the actual haunted house, kind of disappointed me too. Because
Mhm.
and I guess this is a good transition into talking about the whole Sarah Bellows backstory and what we actually think about that. I
Mhm.
really, really, I didn't like it at all. Honestly, this is where my issues with the movie come in because I wanted this movie to be just 100% the Scary Stories books. Like I wanted every element, and the
Yeah.
Sarah Bellows thing was just like to me felt like a cliche Hollywood horror backstory because it's been done so many times where the angry ghost is coming back for vengeance, but she's actually not really a bad person. She went through A, B, and C. I mean, I don't want to ruin anything because I definitely want to show you the movie Mama soon, but that is a
Yeah.
lot of what's in Mama is just like that, like a vengeful ghost that doesn't
Mhm.
really mean any harm.
Well,
I don't like that. I think it's
I
been done so many times.
I didn't have as big of a problem with like that the haunted house thing at the end because I honestly when I saw the trailers
Hmm.
and they like mentioned Sarah Bellows and things like that, I was like, okay, I guess this is their one new story. Like they wanted to do
Right,
something as they do.
right.
Um, so if it was just that, I don't think I'd mind. But I 100% see what you're saying, and maybe that's an argument for, this should have just been a straight anthology because
Yeah,
while everything prior, like the book writing itself, I like that.
I did
Um,
like that too. Yeah.
but yeah, for the just the fact that they decided not to make this a straight anthology led them into that problem, like because they
Yeah.
had to come up with some overarching story to tie
Yeah,
everything
to tie
together,
everything together. But like
which is
why not pick another
unnecessary.
story?
Right.
Yeah.
They could
Well,
have, yeah.
I guess they could have picked like anything from the book and kind of made it more, but I guess like you said maybe they wanted to do their own thing and you know they wanted to have maybe their own input on the scares like okay, well the Sarah Bellows story never happened in the books, but we're going to make it because we want to, have our own little spin on it Hollywood style. They always do that shit. But
Right.
I was just disappointed because I was hoping that every scary element in this movie would have to do with the books, and the whole Sarah Bellows thing didn't. Again, I felt like it was very, very cliche. Like they start listening to that thing of her getting the electric shock and everything, and it was just like,
Uh-huh.
eh. Like some people may have thought that was really, really cool and interesting, and all poor Sarah Bellows, but like I've seen this story done in horror so
Right.
many times. Mama's just one example, but this has happened a lot where it's like, oh, but she wasn't a bad person, but she's killing a bunch of kids out of out of being vengeful. I don't know. I didn't like that at all. And the ending was kind of disappointing. She was kind of creepy when Sarah Bellows does appear to Stella and they have that little like talk in the basement or whatever. It was
Yeah.
kind of creepy. Like she looked kind of creepy, and then and then she screams and disappears or whatever. But I kind of just felt like the movie towards the end got cliche, didn't really have any nostalgia or tied to it because they kind of stopped doing any of the stories after that point.
Yeah.
So, that's my
Yeah.
main complaint of the movie. That's the only real thing I can complain about. So how do you personally feel though about like the backstory? Maybe you don't feel as strongly disappointed as I do about it, but like
No.
what's your honest opinion of the Sarah Bellows story? And her like being like kind of like a victim, I guess, like her family was horrible, blah blah blah.
Yeah, that was for sure a cliche. There is another movie that I'm thinking of. I can't remember the title where it is just some ghost and then they like the characters save her or whatever and then yeah, she's not a bad. So definitely cliche.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with because I kind of like the idea of Stella being trapped in this story. The story itself,
That's cool. That
yeah,
element of it, because then she can't. There's no way for her to escape, which is
yeah.
kind of creepy and cool. Yeah, that part of it was not bad.
For me, like I said, the first stories really well done. I loved all of them
Right.
mostly. And then Me Tide O.T. Walker, I feel like was offensive. Like I hated it.
Yeah.
And then the Sarah Bellows stuff at the end just didn't do anything for me as much
Yeah,
as I really enjoyed the first few stories.
me
So I
too.
guess that's how it would go. Like I
Right.
really enjoyed the first part because it was all the scary stories. Then they
Yes.
fucked one up or a couple up.
Yeah.
Then they went into this new thing that was unnecessary because, you know, it would have
But
been
yeah,
cool if this
there's
was just. I always, when I read the books growing up, and as I got older and I like got into things like Tales from the Crypt and The Twilight Zone, I was always like, this should be an anthology. This should be a show
a
like
show.
those.
I agree. I agree. And there's so much in the Alvin Schwartz books. There's so many stories they could have chose, like,
Can't
to me.
tackle it in one movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. But I mean, like, with the whole ending with Sarah, like, I just wish it would have went out on a high note and we got like at least one more from the book. Like, I was hoping Stella, when her story was written, she would get like the biggest, scariest one of all because she's the main character, and like everybody else got one from the actual books. And even though it was called the haunted house, it had nothing to do with the haunted house from the books, obviously. Other than the fact that in the haunted house, maybe there's some type of parallel there between the haunted house in the books and Sarah Bellows' story, because in the haunted house, she's actually a good ghost too that just got murdered by her husband. Do you remember the story of that one?
I don't. Not the haunted
Oh,
house. No.
the girl that's like on the front of your book, the Treasury, like she's actually like
Right.
was murdered by her husband, and this priest comes into the house because he's trying to like settle the haunt in the house, and she says, "If you bury my bones, I can finally rest." Like she's actually like a good spirit, even though she looks like
Uh-huh.
fucking shit and scary.
Just
But so I don't know. Maybe there was some type of parallel between like the victim ghost vengeful thing, whatever. I don't know. But
right.
I've seen it done so many fucking times. Like there's Mama, which is still an amazing movie. I want to show you that. But Mama was one of them. There's a movie called Urban Legends Bloody Mary. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's like it's got a bunch of different urban legends. It actually has the spider coming out of the girl's face. So I actually have seen
Hmm.
that done in a movie before because it has a
I've
bunch of
seen
different urban
I've
legends in
seen
it.
the first Urban Legend. I haven't seen
I've
any.
seen that. I've seen that one too. That one was okay, but
Yeah.
the Bloody Mary one is basically the same as this story. Like Bloody Mary, she was killed in a high school years and years ago in the 60s. Now she's killing a bunch of kids in like the 2000s, and they have to
Mm.
find her bones and bury them so she can stop being vengeful. I just feel like it's a story that's been done so many times, and they could have been so much more original in this movie. But I guess,
Yeah.
overall the movie was still really really good, but that's like my one and only complaint. I didn't like the Sarah Bellows backstory, and I didn't like I guess the last half hour of the movie. So I wouldn't even say, oh, the
Hmm.
last half of the movie I don't like. It's just probably like that last, like from Me Tide Walker onward was kind of like, it just felt
Right.
like eh.
Which again, I'll say it again. It was disappointing for the movie to end like that,
Yes,
based on how strong it was before that.
right.
Um,
Although the hinting at the very end about a possible sequel made me kind of excited because maybe they are going to do a sequel and have other stories, that because didn't you say that like they had said they wanted to include so many more stories, but they obviously weren't able to for time.
they
They had to cut.
did, yes.
Yeah.
I think I heard specifically that they mentioned high beams. They wanted to include that
Oh, that
somehow.
would have been kind of
I don't
cool.
remember their reasoning for taking it out, but that was one that they wanted to try to include.
That'd be a good horror movie in general. Like that's the whole thing. Ed
Uh,
likes that one too. That one's
yeah.
that one's good. That one's a really popular one too. So maybe that's why they wanted to include it. But I guess like for time or whatever, maybe they were just like,
Mm.
whatever.
On other stories, though, I did want to say that I did really like. There was one point in the movie where they're flipping through her book, and you see the titles of some of the other stories.
I know. I love that.
I remember and I wrote down The Attic and The Cat's Paw. Those are the ones I picked out and saw. That
And the
was really
Wendigo.
cool.
The Wendigos
The
in there.
Wendigo. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that one.
And then as far as the other story that was included, which I thought was kind of creepy, and it was kind of, I guess it was, I don't know if it was part of, they put it as part of Sarah Bellows' backstory or whatever, but the Hearse song with the
Oh, that was
blind
cool.
lady and she started to sing it. That
Yeah, I
was,
loved that because
and
like
that
that
kind of
little
became the theme.
jingle.
Yeah, it was kind of the
Yeah,
theme.
I loved that. I love that they included that because, and that's, I mean, I never, like the her song is in the book with like the notes. I don't know how to fucking read music notes, so I never knew like the actual like melody of the song. So like when she starts singing it, I was like, that's really cool. And I like that Sarah Bellows had like a little music box. So did the
Yeah.
blind lady, but the little music box that played it, I was like, I want that. That's so cool.
So that was very cool. And it was cool that they
Yeah.
included one of the story because there are a handful in the books that are like songs and they're fun. And
Right.
it was
Yeah.
cool it included one of those.
Yeah, the her song's like, and that one's like a pretty popular one too. A lot of people really like that. I guess we could do like overall thoughts, and then you said maybe like pick 2 or 3 that
Yeah.
we hope to maybe see in the sequel, or that we would have liked to have seen in this movie.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, yeah, to wrap up, I kind of had wanted to go back to the question I posed at the beginning, but in a
Hmm.
different way.
Right.
So going forward, should this movie do well enough, would we prefer a sequel or to have like have it to spin off into like an anthology show? Personally, for me, and based on what how the movie ended and how it kind of fell apart at the end because they had to
Yeah.
come up with some story to connect everything. If you
Right.
just do an anthology movie or show, you don't have that problem. Just
That's
the
true.
stories. I would love a show. I'm very excited for the Creep
Yeah.
Show to see how that is executed.
Right.
I would just love a new anthology show. A movie would be awesome too, but I would prefer a show going forward
I
instead
agree.
of.
I think it should. I mean, the movie's doing pretty well. At least the theater was packed when I went both times. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that what I don't actually know what like ratings it's actually getting like
Mhm.
on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. But like I know in my town like so many people like are going to see it. A lot of people seem like they like it. Overall, I did like it. I would
Me
probably give it
too.
like a 7 out of 10 maybe, just because the ending falling apart there would lessen
Yeah.
it a little bit. But it's not like it's definitely not like I hated it like fucking Pet Cemetery, but it's also not like I super, you know. Actually, no,
Right.
I did really like it. Like I gotta like all the stories were done so well that it's definitely you know it's definitely strong enough where I want to and I want to buy it when it comes out. Like I definitely want to own it, and I definitely want to see it again.
Yeah.
Ed really liked it. He was like, I want to go see it again. Like so he really liked it. My sister really liked it. It's just that whole ending. It's just like, no, you guys were doing so good. It was so strong, and then it just completely went to shit at the end. But overall, I think it should. I think if it does well enough, they probably will do a sequel. But I would prefer
Right.
it to just spin off and, like you said, do like a whole anthology show, because they wouldn't have, like you said, they would have eliminated the problem with having to come up with this weird backstory of Sarah Bellows if they had just literally done all the stories as an anthology movie.
I know. And
Like, look at Creepshow, guys. That was an awesome movie.
I know, but that's I guess more argument for making it a show because like we said, maybe when they first were starting to work on the movie, they were like they thought about an anthology, but
But
like
then
I
they were,
said, that's just not a thing, and those don't do well anymore, and they aren't made anymore, so they were like, no, we can't do that. So we'll
well,
have to.
why? Why can't somebody just take a chance and see? I mean, Creepshow was so popular.
Right, but because it's Hollywood, they look at what works and then they just copy
I
it,
guess
keep going. And
that's
if it
true.
doesn't work, or you don't have people, every once in a while you'll have somebody make something new, and then oh, that does so well.
Right.
So yeah,
I
like
mean, I think
remakes we've talked about, or the
yeah.
new Halloween led to other
Oh,
things.
that's true. Yeah, so I think, and going back, like I think that this probably will have a sequel just because it seems like it's doing well enough, and they do hint to it at the end. So I'm thinking it probably will have a sequel, and maybe we'll get other stories. I would prefer like exactly what you just said. I would much prefer it just like spins off and kind of just does it, like a show like Creepshow's doing. I don't think we're probably gonna get that though. So if there is another movie, I will be excited to see like what you
Or
know.
couldn't they? They didn't even have to like ignore this movie or whatever. Couldn't they then just have the sequel literally just go into Sarah Bellows' book and then just flip through stories
Oh,
and things
that
like
would be
that?
cool. That would be really cool.
That would
Maybe.
work, I think.
Well, they do, and they hint at the very end of the movie, like Stella's like what's it called? What is it called when her voiceover, I guess, because she's like ending the story. Her narration at the very end,
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I know I'll see them again someday, like Chuck and the other her other friend, and like so it was implying that maybe they're still alive and maybe she's gonna not, and she says like we're never gonna give up on them, and then like his sister, Chuck's sister's like in the back and she's all good. So I
Mhm.
think with that ending, it was so like, hey, they're definitely hinting at a sequel, which I would not mind because I want to see more stories. The stories were done so good, at least,
Yeah.
majority of them in this movie were done so well. I would like to see a sequel. I would like to see more, but I don't know. I would prefer an anthology show, but I don't think we'll ever get that, unfortunately. Maybe. I mean, they're doing Creep Show all these years later, but
Well, hey, there you
I
go,
don't
and
know.
that's back to what I said. If that show blows up, then everyone will be like, "Oh my God!" And then Hollywood will make a dozen new anthology shows.
We should say like what stories we kind of were hoping were in them, or maybe we hope to see in the sequel that weren't in these.
Yes.
So do you have some? Because I'm
Yes.
interested to hear them.
Yes. These
Okay.
were three that two popped into my head immediately, and then one I thought I thought of after. But these are just some of my personal favorites that I always think about, and
Right.
I love the big ones like Harold and the Dream and things like that. But
Yeah, but
these
you got to give
ones,
some love to like the
the
some of the
less
less pop.
popular
Yeah,
ones that are
yeah,
still really good, and
exactly.
these are just three of my favorites. I don't want to say which one's my favorite, but I thought of
It's hard to
um,
pick a favorite.
One Sunday Morning is one I always think about, where the
Oh, when
woman
she
like,
goes to church,
yeah, she
yeah.
like wakes up late, or she thinks she overslept, and then she goes to the church, and then it's just like a service of
Oh my,
everybody for the dead.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's why this would fucking this is pissing me off now because this would so work as an anthology because just thinking of that story
Yeah,
alone, just being its own story, like she gets up, she goes to church, and she's around a bunch of dead, like that's really fucking cool.
I know. And then
Like,
she like runs home, I think, and then the next day she thinks it's a dream, and then somebody brings her like her hat or her shoe that fell off of her
yeah,
as she was running away.
so she was there. Yeah, she thought it was a dream. Yeah, that I remember that one. That one's really solid. See, this would so
Yes,
work as an anthology.
I know.
I would
It's
love to
kind of
see
a
all these stories.
no-brainer.
I
And
know,
then
right?
I also, Maybe You'll Remember was always one of my favorites,
Oh,
where
is that the
the
one?
daughter and the mother like go to Paris or something,
Oh yeah,
and
and
then
then
the
she
mom feels
disappears.
sick. Yeah, and then the
Yeah,
doctor sends her to go get some medicine. She comes back, the mom's gone, and
and
then
they're
they're
like,
like,
"You're crazy." Yeah,
You were never here." Um,
that one was
that one's
trippy. I was
very
like, "What the fuck?"
cool. And even like the explanation for that in the back of the book is like, you know, maybe the mom died of like the bubonic plague or something, and they were freaked out and they couldn't let
And they
anybody know
covered.
this happened in
Yeah, they were
France
covering
or
it
whatever.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one I wrote that I always thought was very creepy was Oh Susanna, and that
Oh
artwork is
yeah,
amazing too. It's like the two
yeah,
college girls.
creepy. I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember the artwork for that one. It stood out. That was creepy. And she
Yes.
like doesn't she like hear somebody saying her or singing a song?
Yeah, like her friend is like singing under the covers, and she gets really pissed off and runs over there and pulls the cover off of her, and it's just her severed head.
Yeah, these books were so dark. I love it. I remember that one now. Well, I like that you actually picked three that are completely different from mine because like there's like we
Mm.
everybody has like their favorite ones. Like I really do like One Sunday Morning. That was probably my favorite one
Yeah.
out of the ones you mentioned. But I would love to see it's mentioned in the book, but it's I would love to see it actually done. The Wendigo was really creepy to me in the book. It's about like the Indian guy and the hunter, and then like, they end up hearing like the wind like calling the Indian guy's name, and he starts
Hmm.
freaking the fuck out. That one was really creepy to me and always stood out to me. I also like I really think the black dog. There's one called the little black dog, and then there's one called the black dog. The black dog is creepy to me because it's just about this guy who lives in like an old house, and he hears like a dog walking around above in the room above him, but he doesn't have a dog, or he has dogs, but he like keeps them outside or something. So he like goes up there, he doesn't see it, but then he sees a dog run past him down the steps and like disappear into the darkness, and he always hears it at like midnight. I don't that kind of freaked me out, even though I love dogs. I'm a huge dog
Hmm.
lover. A fucking ghost dog like just walking around somebody's house and you can hear them is creepy. And then his dog, he brings his dogs into the house because they're like his watchdogs, and they end up like cowering in the corner, and like one just falls over dead, and its like throat gets like torn from like I guess the ghost dog. I don't know. That one was always kind of cool and creepy. Um,
I
and then
gotta
there
reread
was
these because I honestly don't remember those two that well.
oh really? They're
Yeah,
you have the whole treasury, Dylan. You got to read them. No,
I'm
I those
flipping through my book right now to find them.
yeah the there's the and then the little black dog. I forget that one's different. That one's about um a dog that like ends up killing a guy because the guy gets into a gunfight with his owner and kills him. I don't know. That one's a little bit different, but the one I'm talking about is just called the black dog. It's like it's really
I
cool and
found that one.
creepy.
Yep.
And it has like if you look at the picture too, Stephen Gamble's so fucking good. If you look closely at the picture for the black dog, you can see like an outline of a dog in like the shadowy picture of it. Like it's really like it's so fucking good.
Mm.
Anyway, I had another one and I can't really remember, but they're all really good. Like I wouldn't
Oh
mind seeing
yes.
any of the stories.
Oh, there's so many of them. I'm flipping
I
through it
know,
now and
I know, and you're like
just seeing the
they bring you
titles
back.
of some, and it's like, oh, I remember loving that. Hello, Kate, the bus stop.
The bus. Oh, I'm on that one too. Faster and faster. Oh my god! Remember the one with the mom with the glass eyes and the wooden tail? It's so fucking creepy. It's called the drum.
Yeah,
That one was
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
She's like the mom like threatens to leave her daughter. She's like, "You're gonna get a new mom with glass eyes and a wooden tail." I'm like, "What the
Uh-huh.
fuck? Who
And
said that to?"
there's just two little shit kids that are just being assholes. And
Exactly.
and then she actually leaves them.
And the mom has glass eyes and a wooden tail. It's so
Uh,
creepy.
yeah.
The bride's creepy with the picture of the bride's creepy. Remember the one where she like hides? They're playing hide and seek and she like dies in a
Yeah,
trunk. That's
hide and
creepy.
seek at a wedding. That's silly.
I know, right?
Oh, I came across one story that I never liked. It's
What?
always the
Which
ones
one?
that were like past, like a weird blue light.
That one is, yeah, I don't like that one either because
Like,
that one's like
because,
confusing.
right.
Weird. Oh my God, there's one
A
called The
wreck.
Window.
Something was
Oh,
wrong. The
the wreck.
window, is that the one where it's like like this bunch of old guys or something?
No, no, no. That what is that one
The
called?
bed
That
by the window.
the bed by the window. Yeah, no, the
So
window
what's
is fucking scary. It's about this girl who lives by like a cemetery, and one day she just hears like a creature. She hears something scratching at her window, and she looks over and she sees like this little shrunken. The way they describe, there's no actual picture. Like Stephen Campbell didn't draw an actual picture of it, but the way it's described, it's like a shrunken head, a creature with like a shrunken head scratching at her window, and then it fucking breaks through her window and bites her on her neck. It's so creepy, and
Oh,
her brother
oh,
comes
that's
over
like
and
a
like takes it away.
vampire one kind
Yeah,
of.
it's supposed to be like
Yeah,
vampire-y,
something
but
like that.
but it's so creepy the way they describe it. Like, oh my God, these books are fucking amazing, and they would work so well as an anthology. Let's go, Hollywood.
See, as good as they did execute the stories in the movie, it's just like there's so many of
More,
them that you can't
yeah, it'd be a
like.
no-brainer to do it.
It's a disservice to kind of do it as a movie, and you get
Exactly,
like, oh, you get, 4 out of 200 stories. It's like,
exactly.
just do a show.
Just
That'd be
do a show, and
amazing.
then they could, because
I would even be 100% fine with these same people doing the show.
right, exactly. Like, oh my God, maybe like you said, it will end up happening because maybe the movie will get popular enough, and they'll be like, I don't know,
Maybe
maybe
it'll
there'll be
do
some type.
maybe the movie will do, well enough, but not like super crazy,
And then they'll,
money. And so then they'll be like, okay, well, maybe not another movie, but we'll do this other thing.
oh, I would love that. Because
That would
like
be
you
my
said,
hope.
there's just so much in these books that like would be hard to just put into, like, even
Yeah.
if they do a sequel, like we're still gonna be like, oh, but I wish this would have been in it, or there's so many stories to go on. Like an anthology would make sense.
We're greedy, but these books and stories are so good that it
It's
deserves that
worth
kind of treatment.
exactly.
That would be amazing. So that's my vote. I definitely
I
want
agree.
some kind of anthology show that would be amazing and not, like I said, not too crazy of an idea because they're literally doing Creep Show right now. So,
That's true. I think to hint at maybe a future podcast, Dylan, we should reread the books and then maybe do a top 5 of our favorite stories. That would be hard. That would be really hard because there's so many. I can't even actually pick my
oh,
favorite one.
you
There's
know, it
so
would
many
be
that stand out.
we could like pick our top 5 and like read them on the podcast.
Oh, that'd be awesome. We'll have to do our scary voices. That's cool.
Yeah, so that could be in the future. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be fun. Oh, The Thing that I just flipped through there. Do you remember The Thing? That one's so fucking creepy
I
too.
think I do, yes.
The picture for it is so scary. Oh my God, I love these books. If you people that are listening have never read the Scary Stories books, you need to go
Oh,
do that.
I know.
They're all solid, and the pictures
Yes,
amazing.
if you liked anything in the movie, then just go track down the books and
Yes.
you'll I'm sure love them
Yep.
almost as much as we do.
I think when you grow up with them, it might be a little different. But I
Yeah.
think even if I had stumbled upon these as an adult, I still would like be intrigued because I loved anything horror anyway, and they're so solid, and the pictures are so they just
And there's so
captivate.
many of them that are all, there's some that are similar. Like there's another one that's kind of a rip off of the Big Toe in a later book where they find like a bone in the ground and then somebody comes to get it. But for the most
Mm,
part, there's just so many stories and there's most of them are all so different and it's just
exactly.
really great.
Some of them, like you said, have like a similar thing, like theme. Like there's one called Cold as Clay where like the guy dies, but she doesn't know he's dead. And she puts like a handkerchief around his head, and then they take his body out of the ground, and he has the handkerchief around his head, so it's like he came out of the ground. So there's some stories that are like that where it's like something will happen, and then they dig up the body, and that's I don't know. It's like so some of them have like a similar theme, but for them and like the Big Toe, yeah, there's that bone one you're talking about is in the books, right? There's like a lady that
Yeah.
finds a bone and she makes like soup out of it or something.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
there's the funny ones like the viper. I love the
Oh
viper.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. And they're the funny ones are the attic is a funny one too. Like it's like
Oh yeah,
he just
it's like
steps on a
presented
nail.
as, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
presented as really creepy and then he just steps on it and it's like, well, you'd scream too if you
If you stepped on a nail and you're buried. The books are so good. They're so worth talking about. They need their own like podcast just to talk about all the stories.